The first time I saw a human bleed, I thought the battle was over. I was wrong. It had barely begun. My name is Riven, Scout Class Observer attached to the Velhari 3rd Expeditionary Wing. My kind are built for watching. 4 compound eyes, a nervous system tuned to detect the faintest vibration through stone or soil, hearing sharp enough to map a room by the echo of a single breath. We are not warriors. We are witnesses. When the Velhari High Command needed eyes on the Doric incursion at Sentinel Station Kappa 9, they sent me. What they did not tell me was that the station's last line of defense was a 2-person human fire team. I met Celera first. She was crouched behind a collapsed support strut when I arrived, bleeding from a cut above her left eyebrow, her dark hair matted against her temple. She had a rifle across her knees and was reloading it with the calm, mechanical precision of someone performing a task they had done 10,000 times. She did not look up when I dropped through the ventilation shaft and landed 3 feet from her head. "You the observer?" she said. "Yes," I managed. "You are not alarmed?" "By you." She glanced at me, 8 limbs, iridescent carapace, for eyes blinking out of sync, and went back to her rifle. "I've seen weirder. Sit tight. We've got company in 4 minutes." "For minutes." She said it the way my kind say the sun rises in the morning. A simple fact. A certainty. As if the Doric assault wave rolling toward us through the station corridors was nothing more than inconvenient weather. I told myself her calm was a performance. Humans were known for masking fear behind bravado. Every xenopsychology briefing I had ever absorbed said the same thing. Humans display false confidence as a social and tactical tool. I believed it then. I do not believe it anymore. The Doric came at minute 3:52 seconds. They hit the barricade like a hammer. 8 units, frontline shock troops armored in impact reactive plating, carrying disruption lances that could punch through a Velhari scout's carapace in a single discharge. I know this because the briefing files included casualty projections. My projected survival time upon direct contact with Doric shock troops was listed as 11 seconds. Solara's partner, a wiry man named Caro who I had not yet met because he was already somewhere in the corridors ahead, opened fire from a position that should not have existed. He had crawled through a maintenance tunnel that ran above the assault corridor, a tunnel barely large enough for a being of his dimensions, and was firing down through a grating at an angle the Doric thermal sensors could not read. 3 of them dropped before they understood where the fire was coming from. Celera took 2 more as they turned. The remaining 3 pushed through the barricade. This is where I should tell you I acted with courage. I did not. I pressed myself against the wall and folded my limbs as tight as my body allowed and tried very hard to disappear. My kind are observers. My instincts are not fight or flight. They are record and survive. But Celera stood up. She stood up, with 3 Doric shock troops in the room, with a cut still bleeding above her eye, with a rifle that needed another 2 seconds to cycle, and she moved forward. Not retreating, not circling, forward. Into the space between herself and the nearest soldier, close enough that its disruption lance was suddenly useless at that range, and she drove the butt of her rifle into the joint of its helmet with a force that made something crack. I heard the crack. I felt it through the floor. The Doric dropped. The second one grabbed her by the shoulder, and she did not scream. She grabbed back. She grabbed its lance arm, twisted her body in a way that looked physically impossible, and used its own momentum to slam it into the wall. The third raised its weapon. She was already moving sideways, already drawing something from her belt, a blade, short and ugly. And then Caro dropped through the grating in the ceiling and landed on the third one's back, and the fight became very fast and very loud, and then it was over. 31 seconds. I counted. Caro was laughing. He was bleeding from his forearm where the grating edge had caught him on the way down, and he was laughing, leaning on his knees, telling Celera she had seen him drop, and she said she had absolutely not seen him drop, and the argument sounded like something they had done before, like the rhythm of an old familiar song. I stared at them. "You are hurt," I said. It felt like the only sentence I had. Caro looked at his arm. "Yeah," he said. "Grating got me. It's fine. You were wounded before the engagement, and you still." Celera was too. He shrugged. "We were both fine. I processed this. I processed it for what felt like a long time." Outside, the station groaned. Somewhere deeper in the structure, another alarm was beginning its cycle. Low, rhythmic, the sound of a system that had been running on emergency power too long. Are you afraid? I asked. They looked at each other. Of what? Solaris said. That question stayed with me longer than the battle did. Of what? Not denial. Not bravado. Not a performance of confidence for my benefit. She genuinely wanted to know what specific thing I was asking about, because fear, to her, was not a general condition. It was a specific response to a specific and identified threat. And in that moment, in that room, they had identified all the threats and addressed them, and so fear had no remaining object. My species experiences fear the way we experience atmosphere, constantly, as a background condition, present in every moment and most strongly felt in moments of uncertainty. We are afraid of the unknown. We are afraid of possibility. We are afraid of things that might happen. Humans appear to be afraid only of things that are happening. And the moment those things stop happening, the fear stops too. I began to understand, slowly, what this means in practice. It means that a human with 11 seconds of projected survival time does not spend those 11 seconds in terror. They spend them doing something. The fear arrives, is processed in approximately the time it takes for a nerve signal to complete a circuit, and is then converted, not suppressed, not hidden, but genuinely converted, into action, into movement, into the forward step and the ugly blade and the grip on an enemy's weapon arm. It means that when Caro crawled through a tunnel barely large enough for his body, with Doric shock troops on the other side of a metal grating, he was not suppressing anything. He was bored. He told me this later, while we waited for the extraction shuttle in the secondary bay. He said the tunnel had reminded him of a building he had explored as a child on his home continent, and he had spent most of the crawl thinking about that building. I did not know how to respond to this. I still don't entirely. We got out. The shuttle came. Solaris slept for most of the return journey, upright in her seat, rifle still across her knees. The cut above her eye sealed with biofoam that someone had pressed there before boarding and that she had not once touched or acknowledged. Caro watched the stars through the viewport. I watched them both. I am a witness. It is what I was built for. And what I witnessed in that station, what I am still processing in the weeks since, in the quiet moments between assignments when my nervous system should be resting but instead returns, again and again, to 31 seconds and a crack I felt through the floor, is not heroism in the way my people define it. My people define heroism as the decision to act despite fear. Humans, I think, define it differently. I think for them it is simply what happens when the moment arrives and the choice becomes available. Not a decision made against something. A decision made toward something. Toward the problem. Toward the threat. Toward whatever is in the room that needs to be addressed. I asked Celera, on the shuttle, if she had ever been truly afraid. She thought about it. She was quiet for long enough that I thought she had fallen back to sleep. Then she said, once, when I thought Caro hadn't made it through the grating. She did not explain further. She did not need to. I understood then what humans fear. Not pain. Not death. Not 11-second projections and disruption lances and Doric shock troops in enclosed spaces. They fear losing each other. Everything else, they have simply decided to walk toward. I am Riven, Observer Class, Velhari 3rd Wing. This is my account of Sentinel Station Kappa 9. I submit it not as a tactical report, but as a record. Because some things deserve to be witnessed and then remembered exactly as they were.